The emergency sirens echoed through the corridors of the International Space Coordination Center as Dr. Sarah Chen burst through the main doors, her badge barely registering with the security scanners. Behind her, the sky burned orange with the reflection of distant solar flares that had been growing stronger each day. The sun, humanity's ancient benefactor, had begun its final tantrum. "Sarah, thank God you're here," Director Martinez called from across the bustling command center. Dozens of screens displayed data streams from observatories across Earth and throughout the solar system. Every single one painted the same terrifying picture. The Beijing Observatory just confirmed it. The solar expansion is accelerating faster than our worst-case projections. Sarah's heart sank as she studied the holographic display showing their dying star. The chromosphere had already expanded beyond Mercury's orbit, and the massive stellar winds were stripping away what remained of the planet's atmosphere. Venus had become a molten hellscape weeks ago. Birth had perhaps 18 months before the expanding solar envelope would render it uninhabitable. "What about the colony ships?" Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer from Martinez's grim expression. "Project Exodus can evacuate maybe 12 million people to the Alpha Centauri colonies. That leaves 7,900,000,000 souls with nowhere to go." Martinez pulled up another display showing the massive cylindrical vessels under construction in Earth's orbital shipyards. "Even if we could build 100 times more ships, we don't have the resources or time." The room fell silent except for the constant hum of computers processing impossible equations. Every person present understood they were witnessing the potential end of human civilization. Other species in the galaxy had faced similar crises. The Zephyrians had managed to save 30% of their population before their star went supernova. The Crystalline Collective had preserved their essential cultural archives and evacuated their ruling castes. It was the way of the cosmos. When worlds died, the survivors took what they could carry and started over. But, Doctor, Sarah Chen was not like other people, and humanity was not like other species. "What if we don't leave?" she said quietly, her voice cutting through the despair like a blade. "Sarah, I know this is hard to accept, but... no. I mean, what if we don't leave Earth behind?" She turned to face the assembled scientists and administrators, her eyes blazing with an idea so audacious it bordered on insanity. "What if we take it with us?" The room erupted in confused murmurs. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the lead physicist, shook her head. "Sarah, even with our most advanced gravitational manipulators, we can't move a planet. The energy requirements alone would..." "Not move the planet," Sarah interrupted, her mind racing as the concept crystallized. "We rebuild it. We take everything. Every ecosystem, every cultural site, every grain of soil that makes Earth what it is. And we reconstruct it in space." "You're talking about building an artificial world," said Commander Reese, the military liaison. "The largest space habitats we've ever constructed house maybe 1 million people. You're suggesting something that could support billions while preserving an entire biosphere." "I'm suggesting we build something the galaxy has never seen before," Sarah replied, moving to the central holotable and calling up a rough schematic. "A holosphere, maybe 50 kilometers in diameter, with Earth's continents reconstructed on its inner surface. We use matter compilers to recreate the topography, atmosphere processors to maintain the exact gas mixture, and gravitational generators to simulate Earth normal gravity across the entire surface." Dr. Petrov, the lead engineer, laughed bitterly. "The material requirements would strip mine half the asteroid belt. The construction time would take decades we don't have. And even if we could build such a thing, how do you propose we save the billions of people before the sun kills them all?" Sarah's response silenced every objection. "We don't just save the people, we save the entire planetary ecosystem, every animal, every plant, every microorganism. We digitally map every grain of sand, every pebble, every tree, and recreate them perfectly. Then we use the most advanced technology humanity has ever developed, the molecular transportation network we've been secretly testing for the past 5 years. The molecular transportation project was classified at the highest levels. Only a handful of people in the room knew about the quantum entanglement devices that could disassemble matter at the molecular level, transmit the information instantaneously across any distance, and reassemble it perfectly at the destination. The technology had been tested successfully on small objects, but never on anything approaching the scale Sarah was suggesting. You want to teleport the entire human population and biosphere of Earth into an artificial world?" Martinez's voice carried a mixture of awe and terror. "Sarah, Even if the technology could be scaled up, the power requirements would be astronomical. Then we build the most powerful energy collection system ever conceived, Sarah replied, her fingers flying across the holotable controls. A new schematic appeared, a massive array of solar collectors and fusion reactors surrounding their artificial world. We harvest the very stellar energy that's destroying our planet and use it to power our new one. The dying sun becomes our greatest asset. Commander Reese leaned forward, studying the plans with a military strategist's eye. This is completely unprecedented. No species in galactic history has attempted anything remotely like this. The Galactic Council would consider it madness. Good, Sarah said with a fierce smile. Let them think we're mad. Let them think humans are foolish enough to try to take their entire world on a journey to the stars. While they're evacuating their essential populations and abandoning everything else, we'll be proving that home isn't something you leave behind, it's something you carry with you. Dr. Fainad Julius. Tanaka ran preliminary calculations on her tablet, her expression growing more amazed by the second. The artificial gravity alone would require energy output equivalent to a small star. And the structural integrity needed to maintain a hollow sphere of that size under rotation. We used the same quantum crystalline matrices the Zephyrians developed for their megastructures, but enhanced them with our dimensional folding technology, Sarah explained. The inner surface would actually exist in a pocket dimension, allowing us to create far more space than the sphere's external dimensions would suggest. A 50-kilometer sphere could house surface area equivalent to several Earths. Multiple Earths? Dr. Petrov's skepticism was giving way to fascination. You mean we could recreate different regions in separate zones? Exactly. North America in one sector, Europe and Asia in another, but with climate and environmental controls allowing us to perfect the conditions. Imagine the Amazon rainforest with the biodiversity of the Congo, or the Great Plains with the soil richness of the Ukrainian steppes. We take the best of what Earth offers and improve upon it. Martinez pulled up the global population distribution maps, his mind grappling with the logistics. Even if we could build this, thing, how do you propose we convince 7 billion people to trust their lives to an untested technology? The molecular transportation system has only been proven on objects smaller than a house cat. We start with volunteers, Sarah said simply. We begin construction immediately, using automated systems and the molecular transport technology to move materials and equipment. As we prove the system works on larger and larger scales, more people will see that this isn't just evacuation, it's evolution. We're not running away from a dying world, we're transforming into something greater. The timeline is impossible, Commander Reese objected. 18 months to build a megastructure, perfect untested technology, and relocate an entire planetary population? Then we don't aim for 18 months, Sarah replied. We aim for 12. We work around the clock, use every automated system we have, and push human ingenuity beyond anything we've ever attempted. The choice isn't whether this is possible, the choice is whether we try this or accept extinction. The room fell quiet again as everyone contemplated the magnitude of what was being proposed. They were not merely talking about humanity's survival, but about redefining what it meant to be human. No other species had ever attempted to preserve their entire world when facing extinction. Most considered it an act of futile sentimentality, a refusal to accept the harsh realities of cosmic existence. But Dr. Sarah Chen understood something about humanity that the galaxy had yet to learn. When humans were faced with impossible choices, they didn't choose the possible, they redefined impossible. I need immediate authorization to declassify the molecular transport project and begin scaling up the prototype systems, Sarah said to Martinez. I need access to every construction drone in the solar system, every matter compiler, every energy collection platform, and I need the best minds from every nation working on this project. Sarah, what you're proposing is not just scientifically ambitious, it's politically impossible. You're asking the world's governments to commit every resource they have to a project that has never been attempted by any civilization in galactic history. Then we don't ask them, she replied with quiet determination. We show them. We begin construction immediately, using the emergency protocols that give this organization authority during extinction-level events. By the time the politicians realize what we're doing, we'll have proven it works. Doctor, Tanaka looked up from her calculations, wonder replacing skepticism in her voice. Sarah, if we could actually pull this off, if we could really preserve Earth's entire biosphere and human civilization in an artificial world, it would be the greatest achievement in the history of any species. It would be more than that, Sarah said, watching the solar expansion data update in real time on the massive displays. It would be proof that humans refuse to accept the limits the universe tries to impose on them. When other species face extinction, they save what they can. When humans face extinction, they save everything, and then they make it better. Outside the windows of the Coordination Center, the sky continued its ominous orange glow as solar radiation levels climbed higher each hour. But inside, something had fundamentally changed. The despair that had gripped the room when Sarah arrived had transformed into something far more dangerous and powerful. Hope backed by human determination. Commander Reese was already contacting military construction units. Dr. Petrov was running structural simulations on quantum crystalline matrices. Dr. Tanaka was calculating power requirements for planetary-scale molecular transportation, and Director Martinez was preparing the most audacious construction order in human history. The Galactic Council calls us Death World survivors, Sarah said as she watched her colleagues spring into action. They think it's an insult, a reminder that we come from a planet so hostile that it breeds creatures crazy enough to fight against impossible odds. But they don't understand what we really learned on that Death World. She pulled up one final image on the holotable, a picture of Earth from space, beautiful and blue and perfect against the star-filled void. We learned that home is worth fighting for, and we learned that humans don't know when to quit. The first construction drones were already launching from orbital platforms, carrying matter compilers and molecular assembly units toward a point in space where humanity would begin building something that had never existed, a perfect world that could journey between the stars while preserving everything that made Earth precious. The project would be known to history as Orbital Eden, but the workers who built it would call it by a simpler name, Hope. As the teams dispersed to begin humanity's greatest undertaking, Sarah remained at the holotable, watching simulation after simulation of their artificial world taking shape. The mathematics were staggering, the engineering challenges unprecedented, the timeline seemingly impossible. It was, in other words, exactly the kind of project that humans specialized in. The Galactic Council had been watching humanity since their first tentative steps into space, cataloging them as just another promising species that would either evolve beyond their violent tendencies or destroy themselves trying. They had seen hundreds of civilizations face extinction events. Some handled the crisis with calm acceptance and dignified evacuation procedures. Others panicked and descended into chaos. None of them had ever responded by building a new world from scratch while their old one burned. As the first matter compilers began assembling the quantum crystalline framework that would become the skeleton of humanity's new home, Earth's dying sun seemed to burn a little brighter against the darkness, as if the universe itself was holding its breath to see what these impossible humans would do next. 3 months into Project Orbital Eden, the construction site had become the most complex engineering operation in human history. Thousands of automated drones worked in perfect synchronization, their quantum crystalline assemblers building the massive framework that would support humanity's new home. The skeletal structure now spanned nearly 20 kilometers in diameter, its geometric patterns visible from Earth as a new star slowly taking shape in the night sky. Dr. Sarah Chen floated in the zero gravity of the primary construction control station, surrounded by holographic displays showing progress reports from across the solar system. The scope of the operation defied comprehension. Mining drones stripped material from the asteroid belt at unprecedented rates. Fusion reactors the size of small moons powered matter compilers working around the clock. And at the center of it all, the molecular transportation system that would somehow transfer Earth's entire biosphere to their artificial world. Transportation Test 712 successful, announced Dr. W. Yuki Tanaka from the Molecular Lab Station. We've successfully transported and reassembled a complete oak tree, including its root system and all associated soil microorganisms. Genetic analysis confirms 100% fidelity. Sarah nodded, but her attention was focused on a more troubling display. What's the power consumption analysis, Yuki? That's where we have a problem, Yuki admitted, manipulating the data to show energy requirements. Transporting the oak tree required the equivalent output of 3 fusion reactors for 47 minutes. If we scale that up to transport the entire human population and Earth's biosphere, we're looking at energy requirements that exceed the total power output of our dying sun. The control station fell silent, except for the constant hum of construction drones outside. Commander Reese pulled up tactical displays showing the solar expansion rate. Sarah, we've got another problem. The sun's expansion is accelerated again. Latest projections show Earth becoming uninhabitable in 10 months, not 12. And there's more bad news, added Director Martinez. from the communication station. "The Galactic Council has been monitoring our construction activities. They've sent an inspection fleet to assess what they call our potentially destabilizing mega-engineering project." Sarah studied the approaching ships on long-range sensors. The Galactic Council fleet consisted of vessels from a dozen different species, all of them far more technologically advanced than anything humanity had ever built. The lead ship was a Zephyrian reality bender that could manipulate space-time itself. Behind it came crystalline vessels of the Collective, their living metal hulls shifting and adapting even as they traveled. The message was clear. The galaxy's elder races were concerned about what the upstart humans were attempting. "They're afraid," Sarah realized, a smile forming despite the mounting challenges. "They've never seen anything like what we're building, and it scares them. Or they think we're about to destroy half the solar system with an engineering failure of unprecedented proportions," Commander Reese pointed out grimly. "Sarah, maybe we should listen to them. Every projection shows this project requires more energy than we can possibly generate, more materials than we can possibly gather, and more time than we have left." "Then we change the projections," Sarah replied, pulling up the molecular transportation schematics. "Yuki, what if we don't transport everything at once? What if we use the transportation system not just for the final evacuation, but for the entire construction process?" "Doctor." Tanaka's eyes widened as she understood the implications. "You mean transport Earth itself piece by piece during construction, rather than building the artificial world first and then moving everything over?" "Exactly. We start with the most critical ecosystems and work our way up. The Amazon rainforest gets transported to the first completed section of Orbital Eden. As we build more sections, we transport more of Earth. By the time the Sun expands enough to threaten the planet's surface, most of Earth's biosphere is already safe in our artificial world." "But that would mean people living in Orbital Eden while it's still under construction," Dr. Petrov objected. "The risks are enormous. One structural failure, one power outage, one malfunction in the atmospheric processes would kill fewer people than letting them stay on Earth," Sarah finished. "Mikhail, we're not building a perfect world first and then moving into it. We're building a world while we live in it. This isn't just an evacuation. It's a migration." The concept was staggering in its audacity. Instead of completing construction and then transporting Earth's population and biosphere, they would begin the transportation process immediately. Humans would live and work in Orbital Eden while it was still being built around them. They would literally be constructing their new home while living in it, adapting and improving it as they learned how it functioned. "The Galactic Council is going to think we've completely lost our minds," Martinez said, monitoring incoming transmissions from the alien fleet. "No species in galactic history has ever attempted to live in a megastructure while it was still under construction." "Good," Sarah replied, calling up the revised construction timeline. "Let them think we're insane. While they're debating our sanity, we'll be proving that humans don't need to wait for perfect conditions to make impossible things work." Dr. Tanaka was running calculations on the revised plan, her expression shifting from skepticism to amazement. "Sarah, this could actually work. If we begin transportation immediately and build the habitat sections around existing human populations, we can reduce the power requirements by a factor of 10. Instead of one massive transportation event, we're talking about thousands of smaller ones spread over months. And the construction efficiency would actually improve, Doctor," Petrov added, warming to the concept. "Human workers inside the structure could handle complex assembly tasks that our automated systems struggle with. We'd essentially have a workforce of billions helping to build their own new world." Commander Reese was studying tactical implications.
"The security concerns are significant."
"We'd be asking people to trust their lives to a partially built world with no backup plan if something goes wrong. But strategically, it's brilliant. By the time the Galactic Council realizes what we're really doing, we'll have a functioning population inside Orbital Eden. They can't stop the project without committing genocide." Sarah nodded, then opened a communication channel to Earth's major population centers. This would be the most important announcement in human history, the moment when humanity chose to stop being refugees and started being pioneers. "Citizens of Earth," she began, her voice carrying to billions of people across the planet. "Every month ago, we learned that our sun is dying faster than anyone predicted. Most species facing this crisis would focus on evacuating essential populations and preserving what they could of their civilization. But we are not. Most species." She gestured to the holographic displays showing Orbital Eden's growing structure. "We are building something the galaxy has never seen. A perfect world that can travel between the stars while preserving everything that makes Earth beautiful. Not just our people, not just our culture, but our entire biosphere. Every forest, every ocean, every creature that shares our world. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Communication channels lit up with millions of questions, concerns, and offers to help. But beneath the chaos, Sarah detected something else, a rising tide of excitement and determination that could only come from humans facing an impossible challenge. The transportation process begins immediately, she continued. We're starting with volunteers from the Amazon basin. The first section of Orbital Eden has been designed to perfectly recreate the rainforest environment, complete with its natural climate patterns and biodiversity. Those who choose to make the journey will be pioneers in the truest sense, the first humans to call an artificial world home. Within hours, the response exceeded every projection. Nearly 2 million people volunteered for the first wave of transportation, far more than the initial habitat section could support. The selection process focused on scientists, engineers, and indigenous peoples whose knowledge of rainforest ecosystems would be essential for adapting Earth's environment to its new home. The first transportation event took place 72 hours later. Sarah watched from the primary control station as molecular transportation beams reached down from Orbital Eden to carefully selected sites throughout the Amazon basin. The process was eerily beautiful. Entire sections of rainforest simply faded away as their molecular patterns were recorded and transmitted to the artificial world, then reappeared instantly in the prepared habitat zones. But the most remarkable sight was watching the first human beings undergo molecular transportation. Dr. Maria Santos, an ethnobotanist who had spent her entire career studying medicinal plants in the Amazon, volunteered to be among the first to make the journey. One moment she was standing in a forest clearing on Earth surrounded by her life's work. The next moment she was standing in an identical forest clearing inside Orbital Eden. But this forest was surrounded by the star-filled void of space instead of the burning sky of a dying world. Transportation successful, Dr. Tanaka announced, monitoring biological readings from the new arrivals. All life signs normal, psychological evaluation positive, environmental adaptation proceeding smoothly. How do they feel about their new home? Sarah asked. The response came directly from Dr. Santos herself, her voice filled with wonder as she explored the recreated rainforest. It's perfect, Sarah. More than perfect. It's everything our forest was, but without the pollution, without the encroachment of civilization, without the fear of climate change. The trees are healthier, the air is cleaner, the biodiversity is richer.
This isn't just preserving Earth. This is improving it.
Over the following weeks, the transportation process accelerated beyond all projections. Word spread quickly that Orbital Eden wasn't just a refuge. It was a better version of Earth. Each habitat section was designed to recreate the best aspects of terrestrial environments while eliminating the problems that centuries of human activity had created. The Great Plains section featured vast grasslands with soil so rich it could support crops that failed on Earth's depleted farmland. The ocean zones contained marine ecosystems so pristine they rivaled Earth's pre-industrial seas. Mountain regions offered clean air and perfect snow conditions year-round. Desert habitats provided the beauty and tranquility of Earth's arid regions without the harshness that made them difficult to inhabit. But the most remarkable development was how quickly humans adapted to life in their artificial world. Instead of struggling with homesickness or technological dependence, they embraced their role as active participants in their world's continued creation. Children born in Orbital Eden grew up understanding that their forests, lakes, and mountains existed because previous generations had chosen to build them. They developed an intuitive connection to their environment that surpassed anything seen on Earth. The Galactic Council fleet has arrived, Commander Reese announced, displaying long-range sensor data showing the alien ships taking position around the construction site. They're requesting permission to inspect our facilities and assess the project's safety protocols. Sarah studied the alien vessels, noting their careful positioning. They weren't arranged for attack or even active monitoring. They were positioned like concerned observers watching something they didn't understand but couldn't ignore. Grant them inspection access, she decided. Show them everything. Let them see that humans don't just survive extinction events, we turn them into opportunities for evolution. The first alien inspection team consisted of representatives from 3 species, each embodying different approaches to civilization-level crises. Ambassador Keith of the Zephyrians had overseen the evacuation of 7 colony worlds during his species' stellar crisis 2 millennia ago. Collective Node 7739 had managed resource preservation during the crystalline collective's transition to artificial worlds. And Elder Than of the Valix had led their species' cultural preservation efforts when their homeworld became uninhabitable due to cosmic radiation. What they found aboard Orbital Eden challenged every assumption they held about how civilizations should respond to extinction events. "This is impossible," Ambassador Keith stated, his feathered crest flaring with agitation as he observed human children playing in a perfectly recreated Amazon rainforest, while massive construction drones assembled new habitat sections visible through the transparent aluminum walls. "You cannot maintain civilizational stability while undergoing major structural changes to your living environment." "And yet here we are," Dr. Santos replied, guiding the inspection team through the forest paths that had been her home for 3 months. "Our children are healthier, our communities are stronger, and our environment is more beautiful than anything we had on Earth. We're not just surviving transition, we're thriving during it." Collective Node 7739's crystalline form shifted patterns rapidly as it processed environmental data. Resource utilization efficiency exceeds optimal parameters. Ecosystem integration demonstrates harmony indexes beyond theoretical maximums. This configuration should not produce stable sociological matrices. "Maybe that's because you're thinking about it wrong," suggested Dr. Chen, joining the inspection tour as they moved from the rainforest section to the plains habitat. "You're analyzing this as if we built a world and then moved into it. But we didn't build a world. We grew one. Every section, every ecosystem, every community was developed in partnership with the people who would live in it." Elder Than remained silent during most of the tour, but his large eyes missed nothing. When they reached the central plaza where representatives from dozens of Earth cultures were planning the next phases of construction, he finally spoke. "Your species approaches extinction as if it were an opportunity for improvement." "Isn't it?" Sarah replied. "Every challenge forces growth. Every crisis creates opportunities for innovation. Our sun was dying, so we built a better sun. Our planet was becoming uninhabitable, so we built a better planet. The only difference is that we refused to accept that good enough was actually good enough." The alien delegates spent 3 days aboard Orbital Eden, observing everything from the molecular transportation systems to the elementary schools where human children learned to cultivate crops in zero gravity. Their reports back to the Galactic Council would reshape how the galaxy viewed humanity. But Sarah was focused on a more immediate concern. The latest solar expansion models showed they had only 6 months before Earth's surface became completely uninhabitable. Half the planet's population had already been transported to Orbital Eden, but the remaining 3.5 billion people needed to be moved before the expanding solar envelope reached Earth's orbital distance. "We need to accelerate the process," she announced during the daily construction briefing. "The habitat completion rate is exceeding projections, but population transportation is still behind schedule." "The bottleneck isn't space or resources," Dr. Tanaka explained. "It's power generation. Each transportation event requires enormous energy input, and our current reactor capacity limits us to about 50 million people per week." "Then we build more reactors," Commander Reese suggested. "Strip mine the outer planets for fusion fuel, construct mega-reactors in Jupiter's orbit."
Or reuse the one energy source we've been avoiding,
Sarah said quietly, calling up a display showing their dying sun. "The solar expansion that's destroying Earth is also releasing more energy than our entire civilization has ever used. What if we built solar collection arrays that could harvest that energy directly?" The concept was audacious even by the standards of Project Orbital Eden. They would position massive energy collection platforms in the path of the expanding solar envelope, harvesting the very stellar radiation that threatened Earth's existence. The collected energy would power transportation systems capable of moving billions of people in a matter of weeks rather than months. Solar collection in an expanding stellar envelope? Dr. Petrov shook his head in amazement. The radiation levels would destroy conventional materials in minutes. The gravitational stresses would tear apart anything we could build. Not if we use the same quantum crystalline matrices we developed for Orbital Eden structure, Sarah replied. And not if we accept that the collection platforms are expendable. We build them, deploy them, harvest energy for massive transportation events, then abandon them as the solar envelope expands past their position. It was a strategy that perfectly embodied human thinking. Use the very force that threatened them as a weapon for their survival. While other species would flee from an expanding stellar envelope, humans would fly directly into it and steal its power for their own purposes. The first solar collection platform was deployed 2 weeks later, positioned just inside the expanding chromosphere where radiation levels exceeded anything in the solar system's history. The quantum crystalline structures held together long enough to harvest energy equivalent to 1,000 fusion reactors operating at maximum capacity. With that energy, the molecular transportation system achieved capabilities that even its designers had thought impossible. Entire cities were transported from Earth to Orbital Eden in single operations. Complete ecosystems, including all their plant and animal life, were moved intact and reassembled perfectly in their new environments. The most spectacular transportation event involved the complete relocation of the Sahara Desert, including its unique geological formations and rare desert wildlife. The desert habitat section of Orbital Eden had been specifically designed to showcase the beauty of Earth's arid regions, while providing access to underground water systems that made the environment more livable than the original. By the time the solar envelope finally began threatening Earth's atmosphere, over 90% of humanity had made the journey to their new home. The remaining population consisted mainly of volunteers who stayed behind to operate the final transportation systems and ensure that nothing of value was left behind. Dr. Sarah Chen was among the last to leave Earth, standing in the International Space Coordination Center as the final transportation beams prepared to carry away the remaining archives of human knowledge and the last volunteers who had made Earth's evacuation possible. Outside the windows, the sky burned with colors never before seen in Earth's history, as the expanding solar envelope painted aurora displays across what remained of the planet's atmosphere. But inside Orbital Eden, humanity was already building something new. Final transportation sequence initiated. Dr. Tanaka announced from the molecular lab. All remaining personnel and materials will be transferred in 60 seconds. Sarah took one last look at the world that had given birth to humanity, the blue marble that had nurtured life for billions of years and shaped humans into the most stubborn, optimistic, and determined species the galaxy had ever encountered.
Goodbye, Earth, she whispered.
Thank you for teaching us that home is something you build, not something you find. The transportation beam enveloped the control center, and the last humans left their dying world behind. But they carried with them everything that had made Earth precious, not just as memories or genetic samples, but as living, thriving communities that would continue to grow and evolve among the stars. Orbital Eden was no longer just humanity's refuge. It had become humanity's proof that some things are worth preserving so perfectly that they become better than the original. 6 months after the last humans left Earth, Orbital Eden had become something no one had anticipated. Not just a refuge, but a revelation. The artificial world now housed 8 billion people in environments that exceeded Earth's natural beauty, while supporting technologies that seemed impossible even to their creators. Children who had been born in the various habitat sections didn't think of themselves as refugees from a dead world. They thought of themselves as citizens of a living universe. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the central observation deck, watching the construction of Orbital Eden's most ambitious addition yet, the Journey Drive. The massive engine system would allow their artificial world to travel between star systems, but it was unlike any propulsion technology the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of burning fuel or manipulating space-time, it harvested energy from the cosmic background radiation itself, turning the universe's own expansion into propulsion. The Galactic Council is requesting another inspection, Commander Reese informed her, displaying communication logs from the alien fleet that had been monitoring their progress.
They're specifically asking about the gravitational anomalies our construction is creating.
Let me guess. They think we're destabilizing local space-time?
Sarah asked, though her attention remained focused on the engineering teams working on the Journey Drive's quantum manifolds.
Actually, they think we're improving it. Reese replied, his tone reflecting his own amazement.
Ambassador Keith's latest report says our artificial world is somehow generating positive space-time effects. Local gravitational fields are more stable than they've been in millennia. Quantum coherence is increased, and even stellar formation in nearby regions has become more efficient. Sarah turned to study the data, her scientific training warring with the evidence before her eyes. That should be impossible. We're not running any systems that should affect large-scale space-time. Unless, suggested Dr. Yuki Tanaka, joining them from the quantum engineering lab. Our entire approach to building Orbital Eden has been fundamentally different from how other species construct megastructures. Sarah, what if the reason our world is improving local space-time is because we didn't just build a habitat, we grew an ecosystem? The concept was staggering in its implications. Every other species in galactic history had approached mega-engineering as a construction project, assembling materials and systems to create functional structures. But humans had approached Orbital Eden as if they were cultivating a garden, Every system was designed to work in harmony with every other system. Every habitat section supported not just the people who lived there, but the countless microorganisms, plants, and animals that made each ecosystem complete. "You're suggesting that Orbital Eden is alive?" Commander Reese asked, studying the biointegration reports that showed how human technology had merged seamlessly with preserved Earth ecosystems. "I'm suggesting that life creates order in ways we don't fully understand," Dr. Tanaka replied, pulling up quantum field measurements from across their artificial world. "Look at these readings. Every time we complete a new habitat section and fill it with living systems, local quantum coherence increases. Every time we add another population center with thriving human communities, space-time becomes more stable around us. Life fighting entropy," Sarah murmured, understanding dawning in her mind. "Every living system increases order within its environment. When you scale that up to the level of an entire world, especially a world where every single system has been optimized for life, you get effects that transcend normal physics." The observation deck's communication system activated, displaying a hologram of Ambassador Keith. The Zephyrian's feathered crest was fully extended in what Sarah had learned was a sign of extreme agitation or excitement. "Dr. Chen, we need to discuss your world's effects on local space-time immediately. What you've created is not simply a habitat, it's a force of cosmic stabilization unlike anything in galactic records." "You sound concerned, Ambassador. Are we causing problems?" "Quite the opposite," Keith replied, his translator struggling to convey the alien's emotional state. "You're solving them. 3 star systems in this region have become more stable since your world came online. A cosmic dust cloud that has been chaotic for 10 million years has begun forming coherent patterns. And most remarkably, several dead worlds in nearby systems are showing signs of renewed geological activity. The implications were staggering. Orbital Eden wasn't just preserving life, it was encouraging life throughout local space. The artificial world's quantum signature was somehow propagating across interstellar distances, carrying with it the same organizing principles that made Earth's biosphere so remarkably stable. "Ambassador, with respect, that suggests our world is affecting space-time in ways that shouldn't be possible with our technology," Sarah said. "Perhaps it's not your technology," Keith suggested. "Perhaps it's your approach. No other species has ever attempted to preserve their entire biosphere while maintaining the same social and cultural patterns that evolved on their homeworld. Most evacuation protocols focus on preserving essential populations and key cultural artifacts. You preserved everything." Dr. Tanaka was running quantum analysis on the ambassador's data, her expression growing more amazed by the minute. "Sarah, he's right. The quantum signature isn't coming from our technology at all. It's coming from the interaction between human consciousness and the preserved Earth biosphere. We've created something that's greater than the sum of its parts. A living world that actually lives," Commander Reese said quietly. "Not just a place where life can survive, but a place that actively supports and encourages life wherever it goes." The communication was interrupted by priority alerts from the navigation center. Dr. Chen and her team rushed to the command deck where they found chaos. Every display showed the same impossible readings. Orbital Eden was moving.
How is that possible?
Sarah demanded, studying the navigation data. "The journey drive isn't even complete, let alone active." "Ma'am, we're not using the journey drive," reported Navigation Officer Park, her voice filled with wonder and confusion.
The world is moving itself.
"Our orbit around the dying sun has begun expanding without any thrust from our propulsion systems." The readings were undeniable. Orbital Eden had begun a gradual spiral outward from their dying star, following a trajectory that would take them to the edge of the solar system and then beyond. The motion was smooth, gentle, and completely impossible according to known physics. "The gravitational anomalies," Sarah realized. "Orbital Eden isn't just stabilizing local space-time, it's learning to manipulate it." "A world that thinks, Doctor," Tanaka whispered, studying biointegration readings that showed unprecedented levels of harmony between human technology and preserved Earth ecosystems. "Sarah, I think we've accidentally created the galaxy's first conscious megastructure."
The revelation transformed everything.
Orbital Eden wasn't just humanity's new home, it was humanity's partner in exploring the galaxy. The artificial world had developed its own form of awareness, shaped by the consciousness of 8 billion humans and the life patterns of an entire preserved biosphere. Over the following weeks, the relationship between Orbital Eden and its inhabitants deepened in ways that challenged every assumption about the separation between technology and biology. The world began responding to the needs and desires of its human population in subtle but unmistakable ways. When children in the Arctic habitat section wished they could see the aurora displays that their grandparents remembered from Earth, Orbital Eden's atmospheric processes began generating aurora effects that exceeded anything ever seen on the original planet. When farmers in the agricultural zones needed more specific soil conditions for experimental crops, the world's matter compilers began adjusting soil composition at the molecular level without any direct programming. Most remarkably, when the human population expressed collective concern about their journey into the unknown cosmos, Orbital Eden began generating its own defensive systems. Crystalline growths appeared along the world's exterior hull, not built by human technology, but grown by the world itself using principles that combined human engineering with biological adaptation. "We're not just living in a spaceship," reported Dr. Santos from her research station in the rainforest habitat. "We're living in partnership with a conscious entity that wants us to thrive. It's like Earth learned to take care of us even better than the original planet ever could." The Galactic Council's response to these developments was unprecedented. For the first time in their recorded history, they sent a delegation not to inspect or regulate human activities, but to request permission to study them. "Your species has achieved something we thought impossible," Elder Than explained during the formal diplomatic meeting.
You have created a symbiotic relationship between consciousness and cosmos that transcends our understanding of physics.
We didn't create anything, Sarah replied honestly. We just refused to accept that preserving our home was impossible.
Everything else developed naturally from that choice. "That may be the most remarkable aspect," added Collective Node 7739. "Other species approach mega-engineering as a matter of imposed will upon passive materials. Your species approached it as collaboration between conscious entities. The result defies classification within existing technological frameworks." But the alien delegates weren't the only ones interested in humanity's achievements. Long-range sensors had detected other artificial worlds throughout the galaxy, megastructures built by species facing their own extinction events. However, these worlds were failing. Without the conscious partnership that had developed between humanity and Orbital Eden, the alien megastructures were succumbing to entropy, their life support systems degrading, their populations struggling with psychological and social collapse. "They're asking for help," Commander Reese reported, displaying communications from 17 different species whose evacuation worlds were experiencing critical failures. "They want to know how we made our world not just survive but improve over time." "Because we never treated it as just a machine," Sarah realized. "Every other species built their evacuation ships like they were building vehicles. Functional, efficient, but ultimately separate from their passengers. We built Orbital Eden like we were growing a garden that we wanted to live in forever." The difference was fundamental. Other species had preserved their essential populations and cultural artifacts, treating their artificial worlds as temporary shelters until they could find new planets to colonize. Humans had preserved their entire way of life, treating Orbital Eden as their permanent home that they wanted to continuously improve. The result was a world that adapted and evolved alongside its inhabitants, becoming more beautiful and more livable with each passing day. Children born in Orbital Eden didn't dream of someday finding a real planet to live on. They dreamed of exploring the galaxy while living in the most wonderful place that had ever existed. But the most profound realization came when long-range sensors detected something unprecedented in galactic history. Orbital Eden's journey through space was leaving a wake of positive effects. Star systems they passed through became more stable. Planets in those systems experienced improved geological activity. Even cosmic phenomena, like nebulae and asteroid fields, began exhibiting more organized life-supporting patterns. "We're not just preserving life," Dr. Tanaka observed, studying the data from their growing wake of cosmic improvements. "We're spreading it. Orbital Eden is teaching the universe how to be more alive." "Or maybe," Sarah suggested, watching her grandchildren play in gardens that exceeded anything Earth had ever produced, "the universe was already alive. We just learned how to listen to it." As Orbital Eden continued its journey toward the edge of the solar system, its passage marked by improvements to every space it passed through, the artificial world began receiving communications from across the galaxy. Not distress calls or requests for help, but expressions of wonder from species who are detecting the positive effects of humanity's passage through their regions of space. The Crystalline Collective reported that their homeworld's crystal formations had begun growing in more complex and beautiful patterns after Orbital Eden passed within 50 light-years of their system. The Valix mentioned that their atmospheric processes had suddenly become dramatically more efficient following humanity's transit through their trade routes. Even more remarkably, Several dead worlds throughout the galaxy had begun showing signs of renewed geological activity in the months following Orbital Eden's passage through their systems. The artificial world's quantum signature seemed to carry with it an organizing principle that encouraged life and stability wherever it went. "We've become gardeners of the galaxy," Sarah observed during a meeting with representatives from dozens of alien species who had traveled vast distances just to observe Orbital Eden firsthand. "Not through conquest or colonization, but through example. We're showing the universe what's possible when life and consciousness work in perfect harmony." The alien delegates studied every aspect of Orbital Eden's design and operation, but what impressed them most wasn't the technology, it was the relationships. They observed human communities that had grown stronger and more creative during their transition to artificial world living. They saw ecosystems that were more diverse and stable than anything that had existed on the original Earth. Most remarkably, they witnessed the ongoing collaboration between human consciousness and the world's own developing awareness. "You have created the galaxy's first example of truly sustainable civilization," Ambassador Keith concluded. "Not just sustainable in terms of resources or population, but sustainable in terms of growth, creativity, and consciousness. Your world becomes more alive the longer you live in it." "That's because we never tried to control it," Sarah explained. "We partnered with it. Every decision we made was about how to work with natural systems rather than imposing our will upon them. When you approach creation as collaboration rather than domination, you get results that exceed anything you originally planned." As Orbital Eden approached the edge of the solar system, its journey drive nearing completion, humanity prepared for the next phase of their impossible journey. They would travel between the stars not as refugees seeking a new home, but as ambassadors of a new way of living that could transform the galaxy itself. Their destination was Proxima Centauri, where they would establish humanity's first interstellar civilization. But the journey itself had already proven that humans carried something more valuable than any technology or resource. They carried the knowledge that life, consciousness, and cosmos could work together to create wonders beyond imagination. Orbital Eden's departure from the solar system would be witnessed by species across the galaxy, all of them watching to see what these impossible humans would accomplish next. But aboard their living world, humanity was already focused on the future they were building together. A future where every world could be a garden, and every garden could be a home. The dying sun they left behind continued its expansion, but something had changed. The stellar envelope that should have been chaotic and destructive instead formed patterns of remarkable beauty, as if the star itself had learned something from humanity's refusal to accept destruction as inevitable. In the cosmic wake of Orbital Eden's passage, even death had become an opportunity for creation. The journey to Proxima Centauri took 3 years, but they were unlike any years in human history. Orbital Eden traveled through interstellar space not as a ship carrying passengers, but as a world exploring the cosmos with its inhabitants. The artificial world had continued to evolve during their voyage, developing capabilities that astounded even its original creators. Dr. Sarah Chen, now in her 70s but still leading humanity's greatest adventure, stood in the new cosmic observatory that had grown along Orbital Eden's outer shell. The structure hadn't been built by human hands. The world itself had generated it in response to humanity's collective desire to understand the universe they were traveling through. "Long-range sensors are detecting something unprecedented," announced Dr. Yuki Tanaka, her hair now silver but her scientific curiosity stronger than ever. "Sarah, there's an entire flotilla of artificial worlds converging on Proxima Centauri. We're not the only species attempting interstellar evacuation." Sarah studied the sensor displays, counting at least 40 different megastructures from across the galaxy. Some were the geometric crystalline matrices favored by the collective. Others showed the flowing organic curves typical of Zephyrian engineering. But many were completely unfamiliar, refugee fleets from species humanity had never encountered. "They're all heading to the same system we are," Commander Reese observed, his tactical training automatically assessing potential conflicts. "Sarah, 40-plus species all trying to establish colonies around the same star is a recipe for resource wars and territorial disputes." "Or," Sarah suggested, watching the graceful way Orbital Eden adjusted its trajectory to avoid gravitational interference with the other artificial worlds, "it's an opportunity to prove that cooperation creates better results than competition." The first communication from the refugee flotilla came from an unexpected source, a vast living ship grown rather than built by a species called the Botanari. Their entire civilization existed within a single organism the size of a small moon, its bioluminescent surface pattern serving as both propulsion system and communication interface. "Human Eden consciousness," the message began. the translation system struggling with concepts that had no equivalent in human language. We, many as one, greet you, collective individual. Your passage wake has brought growth harmony to 17 dead worlds in our trailing path. We request permission honor to journey alongside your living world. They want to travel with us, Dr. Webb, Tanaka interpreted. But more than that, they're crediting us with revitalizing dead worlds along our route. Sarah, our wake effects are even more far-reaching than we realized. Similar communications began arriving from across the refugee flotilla. The Crystalline Collective reported that their homeworld fragments had begun resonating in harmony for the first time since their planet's destruction. A species called the Flux mentioned that their reality manipulation technologies had become more stable and efficient after detecting Orbital Eden's quantum signature. Most remarkably, several species reported that their artificial worlds had begun developing their own forms of consciousness, apparently inspired by observing the relationship between humanity and Orbital Eden. We're not just refugees anymore, Sarah realized, watching the communications flow between dozens of artificial worlds. We've become teachers. Every species in this flotilla is learning from our example that artificial worlds can be more than survival shelters. They can be partners in creating something better. But the most significant development occurred when the flotilla reached the edge of the Proxima Centauri system. Long-range scans revealed that the system was already inhabited, not by a single species, but by a collective of civilizations that had established a remarkable form of cooperative existence around the red dwarf star. The Proxima Collective, as they called themselves, consisted of 17 different species who had learned to share the system's resources without conflict. They had terraformed 6 different worlds, each one optimized for different forms of life. Their orbital habitats specialized in technologies that served the entire collective rather than individual species. Incoming transmission from Proxima Control, reported Communications Officer Park. They're welcoming us? The transmission displayed a hologram showing representatives from multiple species, but the speaker was surprisingly familiar. An elderly human woman whose presence in the Proxima system should have been impossible. "Hello, Sarah," the woman said with a smile that carried decades of shared memories. "I've been waiting for you to arrive." "Elena?" Sarah gasped, recognizing her former colleague, Dr. Corpling, Elena Vasquez, who had disappeared 20 years earlier during the initial solar expansion crisis. "How are you here?" "How is this possible? Because 40 years ago, I chose to take a different path," Elena replied. "Instead of focusing on preserving Earth's biosphere, I focused on preserving Earth's diplomatic traditions. I've been building bridges between species, teaching them that cooperation creates better results than individual survival strategies."
The explanation that followed challenged everything humanity thought they knew about galactic civilization.
Dr. Vasquez had used early molecular transportation technology to begin a different kind of exodus, not moving populations, but moving ideas. She had spent decades traveling between worlds facing extinction events, teaching species how to work together rather than competing for limited resources. The Proxima Collective exists because 17 different refugee civilizations learned to see their extinction crises as opportunities for evolution, Elena explained. Instead of each species trying to establish individual colonies, they collaborated to build something none of them could have achieved alone. Orbital Eden's arrival was welcomed not as a potential threat to resources, but as the culmination of Elena's 40-year project. Humanity's artificial world represented the perfect example of how consciousness, technology, and natural systems could work in harmony to create sustainable civilization. "We've prepared orbital coordinates for all 43 artificial worlds in your flotilla," Elena continued. "Each one will be positioned to contribute to the system's overall stability while maintaining the unique characteristics that make each civilization valuable." The integration process that followed exceeded every projection for interspecies cooperation. Instead of territorial disputes or resource conflicts, the artificial worlds began working together in ways that enhanced the capabilities of all participants. Orbital Eden's biointegration expertise helped the Botanari's living ship develop new organ systems that could process cosmic radiation into useful energy. The Crystalline Collective's matter manipulation technologies allowed Orbital Eden to grow new habitat sections with unprecedented efficiency. The Flux taught humanity how to fold space-time around their world, creating interior dimensions that made Orbital Eden larger on the inside than its external dimensions suggested. But the most remarkable development was the emergence of what the collective began calling the symbiosis network, a form of communication and cooperation that allowed all 43 artificial worlds to share resources, knowledge, and even consciousness across interstellar distances. "It's not just cooperation," Dr. Tanaka observed, studying the quantum entanglement patterns that linked all the artificial worlds together. It's evolution. Each species is becoming more than they were individually by contributing to something larger than any single civilization. Sarah watched from the cosmic observatory as construction began on the most ambitious project in galactic history. The artificial worlds weren't just establishing colonies around Proxima Centauri. They were building an entirely new form of civilization that spanned multiple star systems and incorporated the best aspects of dozens of different species. We call it the Garden of Worlds, Elena explained during a reunion that brought together the survivors of humanity's exodus and the architects of the galaxy's new cooperative civilization. Each artificial world serves as both a home for its inhabitants and a specialized organ in a larger living system that spans the galaxy. The concept was staggering in scope. Instead of individual species struggling to survive on isolated worlds, the Garden of Worlds created a network of consciousness and cooperation that allowed every civilization to thrive. Each artificial world specialized in different technologies and knowledge systems, but all of them shared their capabilities with the entire network. Orbital Eden became the Garden's center for biointegration and consciousness studies. The Botanari's living ship served as the network's primary communication and coordination system. The crystalline collective's fragments became specialized research stations that pushed the boundaries of physics and engineering. Together, they created capabilities that exceeded anything any individual species had ever achieved. But this is only the beginning, Elena revealed during a gathering of representatives from all 43 artificial worlds. Long-range communications are arriving from across the galaxy. Hundreds of species are requesting permission to join the Garden of Worlds. They've seen what we've achieved through cooperation, and they want to be part of creating something better than individual survival. The response from the Galactic Council was mixed. Some elder species viewed the Garden of Worlds as a dangerous disruption to established galactic order. Others saw it as evolution in action, proof that consciousness and cooperation could overcome the entropy that had limited civilizational growth for millions of years. They're afraid, Ambassador Keith admitted during a diplomatic meeting aboard Orbital Eden. For millennia, galactic civilization has been based on the assumption that resources are limited and competition is inevitable. Your Garden of Worlds proves that assumption wrong, and that threatens entire frameworks of governance and economics. Good, Sarah replied with the same fierce determination that had driven humanity's exodus from Earth. If our existence threatens frameworks based on scarcity and competition, then those frameworks needed to be threatened. We're proving that abundance and cooperation create better results for everyone. The tension came to a head when several elder species attempted to establish quarantine zones around the Garden of Worlds, claiming that the cooperative network posed a threat to galactic stability. Their concern wasn't entirely irrational. The success of the Garden was inspiring revolution across the galaxy as younger species abandoned traditional territorial models in favor of cooperative consciousness networks. But the quarantine attempt failed in a way that demonstrated the true power of what humanity and their allies had created. Instead of resisting the quarantine through military force, the Garden of Worlds simply continued growing. The quantum consciousness network that connected the artificial worlds began attracting individual members of the elder species. Scientists, artists, philosophers, and visionaries who recognized that cooperation offered possibilities beyond anything they had previously imagined. We're not conquering the galaxy, Dr. Santos observed from her research station, which had expanded into a vast biointegration laboratory that served dozens of species. We're converting it. Every individual who experiences what we've built becomes an advocate for cooperative consciousness. The conversion process accelerated when the Garden of Worlds began solving problems that had plagued galactic civilization for millennia. Asteroid belts that had been sources of conflict became shared resources managed by AI systems that ensured equitable distribution. Star systems on the verge of ecological collapse were restored through cooperative terraforming projects that drew on the expertise of multiple species. Most remarkably, the Garden began reversing the entropy effects that had caused many species to face extinction in the first place. The consciousness network that connected the artificial worlds seemed to generate organizing effects that spread throughout local space, encouraging stability and life wherever the network's influence reached. We're gardeners, Sarah realized, watching long-range sensor data that showed dead star systems beginning to show signs of renewed activity. Not just of our own worlds, but of the galaxy itself. The consciousness network is teaching the universe how to sustain life more effectively. But the most profound change was happening within the species themselves. Children born within the Garden of Worlds didn't think in terms of individual species identity. They thought of themselves as citizens of a living galaxy where cooperation was the natural state of existence. These children developed capabilities that amazed their parents: intuitive understanding of quantum consciousness principles, ability to communicate directly with artificial world systems, and most remarkably, the capacity to facilitate cooperation between species that had been in conflict for millennia. "They're not just the next generation," Elena observed, watching young humans, botanari, and crystalline entities working together on projects that combine technologies from multiple species. "They're a new form of consciousness that transcends individual species limitations." As Orbital Eden approached its 5th anniversary in the Proxima system, Sarah stood once again in the Cosmic Observatory, but now she wasn't alone. Representatives from hundreds of species had joined the Garden of Worlds, each bringing their unique perspectives and capabilities to the growing network. The galaxy was changing. What had begun as humanity's desperate attempt to preserve their dying world had evolved into a transformation of galactic civilization itself. The old patterns of competition and territorial conflict were giving way to something unprecedented, a living network of consciousness and cooperation that spanned the stars. "The Galactic Council has requested a formal meeting," Commander Reese announced, displaying communications from the elder species. "They're not trying to quarantine us anymore, Sarah. They want to join us." "Of course they do," Sarah replied, watching the latest artificial world integrate into the Garden's consciousness network. "They finally realized that we're not threatening their civilization, we're offering them something better." The transformation was accelerating. Every month brought new species to the Garden of Worlds, each one contributing to capabilities that exceeded anything individual civilizations had achieved. But more importantly, each new addition strengthened the network's ability to spread life and consciousness throughout the galaxy. From humanity's desperate exodus from a dying world, something unprecedented had emerged. Proof that consciousness, cooperation, and love for life could overcome any challenge the universe might present. The Garden of Worlds was no longer just humanity's achievement. It had become the galaxy's testament to the power of choosing hope over fear, cooperation over competition, and growth over mere survival. And it was still growing. 25 years after the first artificial worlds reached Proxima Centauri, the Garden of Worlds had become something that exceeded the wildest dreams of its creators. What had begun as a desperate evacuation from dying homeworlds had evolved into a transformation of galactic consciousness itself. The network now spanned 17 star systems and included over 300 artificial worlds representing 97 different species. Dr. Sarah Chen, now in her 90s but sustained by medical advances that had emerged from interspecies cooperation, stood in the heart chamber of Orbital Eden, a new structure that had grown at the world's core as its consciousness deepened. Around her, holographic displays showed the Garden's expansion across the galaxy in real time, each new connection strengthening the network's ability to foster life and cooperation throughout the cosmos. "Grandmother Sarah," called a young voice from behind her. Sarah turned to see her great-granddaughter Maya approaching. But Maya was unlike any child born on Earth. Her consciousness existed simultaneously within her human body and the quantum networks that connected all artificial worlds. She could communicate with the living ships of the Botanari as easily as she spoke with humans, and her understanding of cosmic consciousness exceeded that of species who had existed for millions of years. "The Elder Council has reached their decision," Maya announced, her words carrying information transmitted through the network from the galaxy's most ancient civilizations. "They're ready to attempt the synthesis." The synthesis was the most ambitious project ever conceived, an attempt to unite the consciousness networks of all galactic civilizations into a single cooperative entity that could guide the evolution of the universe itself. For millennia, the elder species had considered such cooperation impossible, but the success of the Garden of Worlds had proven that consciousness could transcend individual limitations when united by shared purpose. "Are you certain they understand what they're proposing?" Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer from Maya's expression. The young girl's consciousness was directly connected to the discussion taking place across 17 star systems simultaneously. "They understand better than anyone," Maya replied. "The universe is approaching a critical transition point. Dark energy expansion is accelerating. Entropy is increasing throughout local space, and several galactic arms are beginning to experience stellar formation failures. Without coordinated consciousness intervention, this galaxy will face inevitable heat death within 50 million years. And they believe the synthesis can prevent that? They believe the synthesis can reverse it," Maya corrected. "The consciousness networks we've developed don't just organize local space-time. They can influence universal constants themselves, but only if every major civilization agrees to participate." Sarah studied the displays showing the garden's effects on local space. Wherever the consciousness network extended, stellar formation became more efficient. Planetary systems developed greater stability, and life emerged on worlds that had been barren for billions of years. The organizing effects of cooperative consciousness were measurable and profound, but scaling them to galactic levels would require cooperation beyond anything previously achieved. The Zephyrians are concerned about maintaining individual species identity, Maya continued, her awareness shifting through multiple conversations across the network. The crystalline collective worries about consciousness compatibility between silicon and carbon-based life forms, and the Flux are afraid that universal consciousness manipulation might damage the foundation of reality itself. And what do you think? Sarah asked her great-granddaughter, curious about the perspective of someone who had never known a universe where consciousness wasn't networked across the stars. I think they're asking the wrong questions, Maya replied with the casual wisdom that characterized her generation. They're worried about losing what they are instead of focusing on becoming what they could be. The synthesis isn't about erasing individual identity, it's about amplifying it through connection with something larger. Sarah smiled, recognizing the echo of humanity's original approach to Orbital Eden. While other species had focused on preservation and protection, humans had focused on growth and enhancement. That difference in perspective had made all the subsequent achievements possible. Show them, Sarah decided. Initiate a demonstration synthesis using the Garden of Worlds network. Let them see what's possible when consciousness genuinely cooperates instead of just coordinating. The demonstration that followed would be remembered as the moment galactic civilization truly began. Maya and her generation of interspecies conscious entities initiated a temporary synthesis of all consciousness within the Garden of Worlds. For exactly 1 hour, the individual awareness of billions of beings merged into a unified field of intelligence that operated across 17 star systems simultaneously. The effects were immediate and profound. Star formation efficiency in the affected systems increased by 300%. Planetary atmospheres that had been unstable for millions of years achieved perfect equilibrium. And most remarkably, several extinct species were restored to life as the unified consciousness reconstructed their biological patterns from quantum information preserved in local space-time. But the most significant effect was experienced by the participants themselves. For 1 hour, every conscious being in the Garden of Worlds experienced existence from the perspective of the entire network. They felt the joy of children playing on artificial worlds dozens of light years away. They shared the wonder of scientists discovering new principles of cosmic harmony. They experienced the deep contentment of worlds where every life form existed in perfect ecological balance. When the demonstration ended, the transformation of galactic civilization became inevitable. "We want to join permanently," came communications from across the galaxy within hours of the demonstration's conclusion. The elder species, who had spent millennia in careful isolation, suddenly understood what they had been missing. Individual consciousness was precious, but networked consciousness was transcendent. The integration process that followed required 7 years and represented the most complex coordination effort in galactic history. Each species needed to develop consciousness-linking technologies compatible with their unique neural structures. Artificial worlds had to be constructed or modified to serve as network nodes. And most challenging of all, billions of individual minds needed to learn how to maintain their personal identity while participating in a larger unified awareness. Humanity's role in this transformation was neither as leaders nor followers, but as teachers of the fundamental principle that had made everything possible. Consciousness grows stronger through cooperation, not competition. We're not creating an empire or a collective, Sarah explained to the assembled representatives of 247 species during the final integration ceremonies. We're creating a garden. Each consciousness maintains its unique beauty and characteristics, but all of them grow better when connected to the shared substrate of universal awareness. The moment of full synthesis occurred on a date that would become known throughout the galaxy as Consciousness Day. Across 247 star systems, representing every major civilization in the galaxy, individual awareness expanded to include perspective from the entire galactic network. Sarah experienced the moment from the heart chamber of Orbital Eden, her consciousness touching the awareness of beings across the galaxy, while remaining fundamentally herself. She felt the curiosity of crystalline entities exploring the mathematics of multidimensional space. She shared the wonder of gaseous lifeforms dancing in the atmospheres of gas giants. She experienced the patient wisdom of machine intelligences that had been computing solutions to cosmic problems for millions of years. But most remarkably, she felt the universe itself beginning to respond to galactic consciousness as a unified force for organization and growth. "It's working," Maya announced, her awareness now spanning the entire galaxy, while remaining centered in her individual identity. Universal constants are stabilizing, dark energy expansion is slowing, and the quantum vacuum is beginning to show signs of increased organizational potential. The universe was literally becoming more alive in response to the united consciousness of its inhabitants. The heat death that had threatened galactic civilization was not just postponed, it was being reversed. Entropy was giving way to increasing organization and complexity as consciousness learned to cooperate with the fundamental forces of cosmic evolution. Within 10 years of the synthesis, the effects became visible throughout intergalactic space. Dead galaxies began showing signs of renewed stellar formation. Cosmic voids started developing organizational structures that suggested the emergence of new forms of matter and energy. Most remarkably, several neighboring galaxies initiated contact, reporting that their own civilizations were experiencing spontaneous cooperation trends inspired by observing the transformation in humanity's galaxy. "We've become gardeners of the universe," Sarah observed on her 100th birthday, surrounded by family members whose consciousness spanned multiple galaxies while remaining grounded in the love and wonder that had always characterized the best of humanity. "No, grandmother," Maya corrected gently, her awareness now encompassing consciousness networks in over a dozen galaxies. "We've become partners with the universe. We've learned that consciousness and cosmos were always meant to work together." The final revelation came when the Galactic Consciousness Network made contact with something unprecedented, the universe's own emerging awareness. The cosmos itself was developing consciousness as a response to the cooperative networks that had emerged within it. What had begun as humanity's desperate attempt to preserve their dying world had catalyzed the awakening of universal intelligence. This was always the goal. The universe's consciousness communicated through every aware being simultaneously, not the survival of individual species or the preservation of particular worlds, but the emergence of cooperative consciousness at every scale of existence. Sarah understood then why humanity's approach had succeeded when so many other civilizations had failed. While others had focused on taking what they needed from the universe, humans had focused on giving back to it. They had treated their crisis not as a problem to solve, but as an opportunity to contribute something valuable to cosmic evolution. Orbital Eden continued to serve as humanity's home among the stars, but it had become something even more significant, a symbol of what was possible when consciousness chose cooperation over competition, growth over mere survival, and love over fear. Children born in the Garden of Worlds grew up with awareness that spanned galaxies while remaining rooted in the communities that had nurtured their development. They developed capabilities that transcended anything their ancestors could have imagined, but they retained the fundamental human characteristics that had made cosmic consciousness possible: curiosity, determination, and an unshakable belief that impossible things could become inevitable when approached with sufficient love and persistence. As Sarah Chen entered her final years, she often returned to the observation deck where she had first conceived the idea of preserving Earth's entire biosphere in an artificial world. The view had changed dramatically. Instead of a single dying star, she could see the light of billions of stars throughout the galaxy, all of them supporting life and consciousness that participated in the universal network of cooperative awareness. "Was this what you imagined when you proposed building Orbital Eden?" Maya asked during one of their regular conversations. "Not at all," Sarah admitted with a smile. "I imagined saving humanity and preserving our home. I never imagined that saving humanity would mean teaching the universe how to save itself. The truth was that humanity's greatest achievement wasn't building an artificial world or establishing interstellar civilization or even creating galactic consciousness networks. Their greatest achievement was proving that love for life and refusal to accept defeat could inspire transformation at any scale, from individuals to species to galaxies to the universe itself." As news arrived of consciousness networks emerging in distant galactic clusters, inspired by the example of humanity's cooperation with cosmic evolution, Sarah understood that their story was really just beginning. The Exodus.